Imagine being a single mom with a small child, trying to put your kid to sleep at night. But every single day and every single night, the walls are shaking from screaming, music, drunken yelling, and strangers coming and going like it's a nightclub. Now imagine this going on for months, and the people doing it couldn't care less. They didn't care about the baby crying. They didn't care about the neighbors. They didn't care about anyone. But one Sunday, during the biggest football game of the year, I found a way to shut them up completely. And the best part? They never saw it coming. If you've ever had a neighbor so bad that you fantasized about revenge, then you're going to love this story. Before we start, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stick around because the payoff in this story is unbelievably satisfying. All right, let me tell you about the worst neighbors I've ever had. At the time this happened, I was a single mom with a young child. Life was already stressful enough. Working, raising a kid, trying to keep everything together. All I really wanted when I came home at night was peace. Just quiet, just calm, just a place where my child could sleep and feel safe. But the place I lived in made that almost impossible. We lived in a small duplex in Hawaii. Now, if you've never lived in a place like that, there's something important you need to know. The walls aren't like the thick insulated walls you find in mainland houses. They're thin. Very thin, and because of the climate, windows are open almost all the time, which means you hear everything, every conversation, every TV show, every argument, every slammed door. And unfortunately for me, the people living in the other unit were the exact neighbors you never want, a group of guys in their early 20s. And when I say a group, I mean like 5 or 6 of them crammed into that apartment. They were loud, not normal loud. Not occasional loud, I mean constantly loud. Every day, every night. Music blasting, yelling, laughing, door slamming, TV screaming, people arguing, people cheering, people cursing. Sometimes it sounded like a bar fight was happening next door. And the worst part? They partied non-stop. Weekdays, weekends, afternoons, midnight, 3 in the morning. Didn't matter. It was like living next to a permanent frat party. But it got even worse because there was something very suspicious going on there. Cars would pull up to the house at all hours. Late at night, early morning, middle of the afternoon, someone would walk up to the door, go inside, and then leave 5 minutes later. Then another car, then another, all day long. It didn't take a detective to figure out what was probably happening. And on top of that, the smoke. Constant cigarette smoke, constant weed smoke, drifting straight into my windows, straight into my home, straight into the room where my child slept. And if that wasn't bad enough, these guys were sports fanatics. Now, normally, that wouldn't be a problem, but when they watched sports, they didn't just watch. They screamed, they yelled, they pounded on the walls, they stomped on the floor. It sounded like a riot every time someone scored. And remember, thin walls, open windows, every cheer, every scream, every drunken chant, it all poured directly into my apartment, night after night. I tried talking to them once, just once. I walked over and knocked on their door. A couple of them answered. Red eyes, beer bottles in their hands, music blasting behind them. I tried to be polite. I said, "Hey, I have a small kid next door. Could you maybe keep it down a little at night?" They just laughed. Actually laughed. One of them shrugged and said, "It's the weekend." Then they closed the door in my face. That was the moment I realized they didn't care. At all. So I went to the landlord. I explained everything. The noise, the smoke, the traffic of strangers. But getting someone evicted isn't quick. There are warnings, paperwork, legal processes. Weeks go by, sometimes months. And meanwhile, I was still living next to a daily party house. Then came the day that finally pushed me over the edge. Super Bowl Sunday. Now, if you know anything about sports fans, you already know where this is going. From the moment I woke up that morning, they were already drinking. Music blasting, people arriving, cars lining up outside. By noon, the house next door sounded like a full-blown sports bar. People shouting, music shaking the walls, the smell of beer and weed floating through the air. My kid was scared. I could see it in their face. They kept asking, why are they yelling? And I didn't even know what to say. As the game started, the noise got worse, way worse. Every play, every tackle, every touchdown, they were screaming like they were inside the stadium. The walls were literally vibrating. And that's when something clicked in my mind. Outside my apartment, in the small yard, there was a fuse box, a big metal electrical panel mounted on the outside wall of their apartment. But the strange thing about it was that it was actually on my side of the yard, technically part of the building, but accessible from outside. And back then, in Hawaii, power outages weren't unusual. Sometimes electricity just went out randomly, for minutes, sometimes hours, no warning. And suddenly, an idea started forming in my mind. I stepped outside quietly. The noise from their apartment was deafening. They were screaming at the TV, cheering, laughing, totally absorbed in the game. They had no idea I was even outside. I walked slowly to the fuse box. My heart was beating fast. Part of me felt nervous, part of me felt guilty. But another part of me, the exhausted, sleep-deprived, frustrated single mom part of me, thought, just 5 minutes of peace. I opened the panel. Inside were the switches, all of them clearly labeled. I stood there for a moment, listening to them scream inside the apartment. And then I flipped every single switch. Click, 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 click. The entire building went dark. The music stopped instantly. The TV shut off. And for the first time in months, there was silence. Then suddenly, from inside their apartment, I heard chaos. What the hell happened? Did the power go out? No way! My game! Are you kidding me? They started yelling, arguing, running around, slamming doors. I walked calmly back into my apartment, turned off the lights, and sat quietly in the darkness, trying not to laugh. Through the wall, I could hear their panic. They were furious. Someone kept yelling, "Turn it back on!" Another guy said, "Check the breaker." But since the panel was outside, they didn't find it. After a few minutes of chaos, car doors started slamming. One by one, they left, probably heading to a bar somewhere to watch the rest of the game. And suddenly, the entire place was peaceful, quiet, calm. My kid was relaxed again. We spent the rest of the afternoon in complete silence. No yelling, no music, no strangers showing up. Just peace. It felt like paradise. And the best part? They never knew what actually happened. They just assumed it was another random power outage. But the story doesn't end there, because not long after that, the landlord finally had enough complaints. The eviction process went through, and those guys were gone. Just like that. The constant parties, the screaming, the smoke, the strangers, all gone. And when the moving truck finally pulled away, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. Pure relief. And the funny thing is, of all the revenge stories people tell, mine wasn't dramatic. No fights, no yelling, no confrontation. Just one quiet walk outside, one fuse box, and one very satisfying moment where the loudest party house in the neighborhood went completely silent. Sometimes revenge doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes the most satisfying payback is simply restoring peace to your life. And honestly, If you've ever lived next to terrible neighbors, you probably understand exactly how good that moment felt. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more unbelievable Reddit revenge stories. And tell me in the comments, what's the worst neighbor you've ever had? And did they ever get what they deserved? Because trust me, sometimes karma just needs a little help. And when it happens, it's incredibly satisfying.